Welcome to the Federal Retirement Experts Podcast. My name is Gregory Jameson. I'm here with my father and founder of Federal Retirement Experts, Harry Jameson, here to talk with you about an important topic, early retirement, and the crucial steps that you need to take to make this happen. So we're going to be going over things from your pension, TSP, Social Security, healthcare. We want to make sure that these topics are covered and talked about so you can make the best decisions as you're making that potential transition.
There's several options to your retirement that you need to think about. First, let's talk about the FERS retirement. That's Federal Employee Retirement System. It's anyone hired, I believe, after January of 1981. Came into the Federal Employee Retirement System. That system, though, when you talk about retirement, you need to think about it being like a three-legged stool. And your retirement, your pension from the government, is one of those legs. The next thing that you need to consider for retirement planning is, of course, Social Security. And then the last thing that you need to include is going to be what to do with your Thrift Savings Plan, TSP. These are important things that need to be understood and are essential as pieces of the puzzle for building a solid retirement for in the future.
If you've reached your minimum age requirements, for most people these days it's about 57, you still need to have your service as well to be able to retire early. If you were to be 57 with 30 years of service, you can retire and you can have your pension, keep your health benefits and other benefits, and also have the supplement as well, the FERS supplement. But for those that do not have the time of service or they're just not old enough, they may need to do a deferred retirement. And if they are, this can mean some potential losses in benefits, potentially. You can lose your health care. By deferring your pension, you're going to lose your health care. We can maybe start it up later on if it's a postponed retirement, but for deferred, we're going to lose some benefits.
The problem that federal employees are going to be facing is that due to the circumstances of them choosing an early retirement, may also have to take into consideration penalties in reduction of actual pension that you would be receiving. These are serious conditions, consequences, and why retirement planning for federal employees is very special. Some agencies right now it's been announced nationwide, various agencies have got this voluntary early retirement authority. You've seen it referred to by the acronym VERA. And once again, there's going to be a bunch of surprise things. It's kind of like all of a sudden getting a surprise early boarding pass. If your agency is restructuring, you may be able to retire earlier with full benefits. That really hasn't all been worked out completely as of yet. So this poses a number of issues and problems. My biggest concern is federal employees, or anyone really planning for retirement, should not rush into decision-making. Retirement will last the rest of your life once it begins. So choose carefully and get the proper advice from a qualified federal retirement expert that can walk you through this process.
It's true. You can lose a lot of your benefits if you're retiring sooner. For a lot of federal employees, one of the biggest concerns that we're seeing is if you're close to meeting your 20 years of service, if you're just a couple months away, you fall in this group, it's a really tough place to be in. You've worked a long career, 20 plus years, and you're trying to get to that 20. So you get the extra bump in your pension calculation. But if you're forced to retire sooner, or you're going to accept the early retirement, this means that you're not going to have the higher pension calculation. So there are things to consider. We want to make sure that as you're going through all of the planning and the steps, that you feel good about it, that everything's clear. And when we're rushed to make decisions, it's important that you have someone to speak with that knows what they're talking about.
Absolutely. Retirement is not a dress rehearsal. It's a lifetime event. So choose wisely. Get the help you need to make the proper decisions for you and your family.
Calculating your federal pension is kind of like figuring out your retirement paycheck. It's understanding what the base is, the base level of income in retirement, to help you cover your expenses.
And one of those items that you need to concern yourself with is your TSP. An example of what it can do for you is kind of like filling your gas tank to your car. The more fuel you have in your gas tank, the further your car can obviously go. So we've always encouraged people to take full advantage of contributing to their TSP. It's never a crime to save money. And TSP is such a good way, effective way of doing it. You're getting matching contributions from the government. This is like free money. Do you realize that if you put in 5% and the government matched it, even if the markets did nothing, you're making 100% on your money in that year? Where else can you go and get that kind of return? It's very important that TSP is a major part of your calculation in retirement planning. So it's never too late to invest, and invest as much as you can and plan wisely.
And if you're over 50, you can make catch-up contributions as well. And as you're getting closer, if you need to add some padding to your finances, it's a good way to do that.
That's a good point, Greg, because the catch-up provision was designed for federal employees when they came on board to work for the government. They had something called families, young families to raise. And that made it harder for them to put the money into TSP that they would have liked to have done. So the government kind of gives the option for federal employees to add additional monies to, it's called a catch-up provision, to their TSP for that particular purpose, because now the kids are getting older, things are moving on, and you've got more disposable money to save for retirement planning.
And then there's Social Security. We've got our pension, we have TSP, and now we have Social Security, and we need to understand, are we going to take it at 62 at the earliest, or right when we retire if it's past 62, or are we planning on delaying Social Security to continue to build the income stream? There's inflation happening, trying to get it calmed down, but it's still happening. Having a step up down the road for income may be something that's important to plan for to account for the increases of inflation going forward. So it's looking at this pension, understanding your finances with TSP. Maybe you also have outside IRAs, outside old 401ks or brokerage accounts, and these accounts can also play a huge factor in making sure you're diversified, but also that you have the income that you need in retirement between your investments, your Social Security, and your pension. And hopefully you have other streams, but for a lot of federal employees, it falls on those few.
Absolutely so. So as you can see, we're just starting to scratch the surface on all the things on our checklist that federal employees need to take into consideration. One of the things I wanted to bring up was many federal employees are former military. Like myself, I'm former Air Force, and I was proud to serve my country. And for federal employees, there's a particularly great benefit associated with it. And that's where the time you spent in the military could be bought back, and those years could be added to your pension with the federal government. So for an example, let's say you needed 30 years of service with the government, and you need to meet your minimum age requirement. Let's say it was 57. If you happen to have had 10 years with the federal in the military, you can buy back that time. And if you only had 20 years of service with the government, that 10 will get you the 30 that you need to meet your minimum age requirement and service requirement with the government. So these are very important things that are special for federal employees. They need to be considered. And once again, a federal retirement expert can help you make those decisions.
You're right. With your buyback time, you can extend your time of service. And for a lot of federal employees, it makes a lot of sense. You know, when you were working with the military, your base pay at that time, which may have been 20 plus years ago, is probably not nearly as high as what it is today. And so buying back that time, typically it's around 3%, depending on the years. But buying that time back, adding it on to your time of service, it really makes a huge difference in your pension. It's worth considering for all federal employees that looking at that calculation.
Yes, absolutely. Also, going down in that vein that you're talking about, which is so important, your federal retirement pension is going to be based upon your high 3 years of service with the government. And generally speaking, those are your last 3 years working with the government. But here's something really interesting. Those high 3 calculations, when you've bought back that time of service with the government, is going to help increase your income. In some cases, for an example, you've retired from the military. You put in your 20 years, and you might have been an enlisted man, an NCO. And then you went to work for the government. And we have a number of clients in this situation. They have a much higher income, their high 3, than what their income for retirement was based on with the military. Oftentimes, when you combine the services time together, and then it be calculated at the high 3 from being in the federal government, that can boost significantly the money you were just getting from the military and getting with the federal government. So these are things many federal employees are not fully aware of. They don't know how to process it. They don't know how to enact maximizing their retirement benefits. So these are smart calculations that can help you get the retirement of your life. Other savings like IRAs, brokerage accounts, well-diversified portfolios is like having multiple main streams of income. Think of it as renting out several properties and getting that as income streams instead of getting just one source of income stream coming in for yourselves. And that, once again, goes back to what we mentioned about looking at old IRAs, old 401ks. You know, there's people having that have had 401ks, they've forgotten about them, and they don't realize that after leaving employment with that company, that they could move that money, and they can combine that money with the assets, let's say, from your TSP, all for increasing your income. These are smart plays that you need to consider for maximizing what your retirement benefit is going to be. And once again, let a federal retirement expert who knows all these ins and outs help you, guide you to get the maximum retirement that you deserve.
Another benefit federal employees have, one of their best benefits, is their federal employee health benefits. Federal employee health benefits are incredible. They're highly subsidized. They're going to be there for you not just during your working careers, but all through retirement as well. You need to keep 5 years with the federal health care prior to separation. If we don't have the 5 years, we can't continue it on into retirement. But this is something throughout your careers you can have your family on and continue to have your spouse on in retirement. There are also options regarding health insurance as time goes on. Things like long-term care. Long-term care insurance is more and more important of a topic as time goes on. It's a insurance policy that you pay for with your health and your age. So this is something to get started on when you're younger, if possible, because as time goes on, it does get pretty expensive. There are other types of insurance policies out there that will give you a stripped down version of long-term care that would be more affordable. However, it would pay for health issues up to limits based upon the plan. So there are options out there. It's worth talking with a professional so you can understand, based upon your budget, what your needs are, what type of plan suits your needs the best. We have health insurance continuing, but health insurance does not cover long-term care. Another benefit coming up in retirement, or maybe it's right when you retire, is Medicare. Medicare Part A is free. Everyone's going to be enrolled in it, covers just the hospital. But for federal employees, you have additional options as well for Medicare Part B as in boy. So Medicare Part B covers your doctors, and that may be an option for federal employees as well as time goes on, to make sure that if they needed services, their out-of-pocket costs are at a minimum. They're in a network where essentially costs are low. However, Medicare is an additional monthly premium along with your federal health care that will help alleviate these out-of-pocket costs. And then by keeping the government health care in your back pocket, it's going to let you choose doctors that are outside of a Medicare network that you may need at that time. So health insurance is a major factor as you're transitioning into retirement, and understanding, do you need Medicare? Are you going to stay on the government health care? What level of coverage do you need, and what makes the most sense for you and your family?
It's very true. What's interesting also about Medicare, as Greg mentioned, there's Part A, which only covers the hospital. And then there's Part B. Part B covers everything else, and there's a significant premium to be paid for that. That money is generally deducted out of your Social Security benefit that you receive every month. But here's another thing that you need to understand. Part B, in some cases, may be optional for you, but in many cases, if you keep the health insurance that you have with the government, or even if you have TRICARE because you're a former military, they're probably going to require you to elect to take Part B. And the reason why? Medicare then becomes your primary source of payment, and TRICARE or their health insurance through the government becomes secondary. So the heavy load of expenses is going to come then from Medicare and not your healthcare provider. And they want that set up to be in place because, quite honestly, it's to their advantage to do that. So you may have to pay for Medicare Part B, assuming you want to still can keep your health insurance with the government, either for the health insurance through the government or TRICARE via military. Important decisions. Once again, you need a federal retirement expert to help you and guide you to make the correct decisions on what's your best benefit, what's in your best interest.
It's true. It's true. It's such a big decision to make, and you don't need to be alone making this decision. You can talk with someone on our staff, and they can help you better understand your situation and what options are out there. So FEGLI, the Federal Employee Group Life Insurance, it's kind of like a cell phone plan where as time goes on, some benefits might drop off and some might get more expensive. As time goes on, typically we don't need as much life insurance. For most federal employees, they have the basic group life insurance. And going into retirement, you may want to continue benefits, but you may not have such a need for it like you may have early on in your career when you have younger children and so forth. So most federal employees, when they retire, like I was saying, they have the basic group life insurance. When you retire and you elect a full reduction in the basic group life insurance, that would be a 75% reduction. The Federal Employee Group Life Insurance, the FEGLI, will become free assuming you're 65. If you're not 65 and you're younger, you can elect this 75% reduction option and you'll continue to pay for it. It's deducted from your pension. It's not going to become too expensive over time, even if you're crossing the border between 59 and 60 years old. When you are 65, whether you're retired or you're planning on retirement at 65, the group life insurance becomes free, assuming this 75% reduction. So it's going to allow you to keep the coverage at 65, but you stop paying for it. Now, over the course of 5 years, by the time you're 70, this benefit reduces down to 25% of what it was. It goes down 75%. So if your salary, let's say, was about $100,000, we have that similar coverage amount. And then when you're 75 years down the road, it goes through the full reduction. Now it's at $25,000, but it'll stay at that level for the rest of your life. So it's a death benefit, burial policy, essentially, that we don't have to pay for anymore. For many federal employees, you've paid for this benefit your entire career. And keeping it a few more years and making sure it's there for the rest of your life on a permanent level is beneficial for a lot of people. There are options for other parts of group life insurance. There are multipliers of your salary with the option B as in boy. However, as time goes on, if you do retire and plan on keeping this option, it would become more and more expensive exponentially. So it's important to understand the coverage you have and how it impacts you as you're making this transition into retirement.
That's exactly right. What's really interesting, what we have found with many of our clients, they signed up for their benefits when they first came on board with the government. Okay, they had young children maybe and so forth. And so the various options that are available to you is, of course, coverage for yourself and going up to 5 times your salary for that coverage. You can have coverage for the wife and children as well that we talked about. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the cost in the very beginning is negligible. It's very negligible. And so it's easy to be forgotten about. And so you do. And you don't make any changes on your allocations for this coverage. Well, here's the thing. As you get older, and you're now in your 50s, and you're going into your 60s, that coverage becomes very expensive. Why? Because it's called term insurance. It goes up in value every 5 years. And until you hit to age 80, it will not stop, okay? Unless you retire early and take the benefit for the reduction for your coverage. But you could have the coverage for your children and your wife, forgotten about it. And I personally have clients who have done that, and suddenly they find they're paying an incredible amount of money on a monthly basis just for that coverage. And the bottom line is the question begs, at that stage of the game, how much coverage do you really need? Is it really important to have all this coverage? Circumstances change. The kids have grown. They're gone. The house is paid for. The number one reason why people buy life insurance, by the way, is to pay off their home. Well, if that's already gone, you need to take a look at all these factors so you're not wasting the money that you have.
And of course, with this optional B that increases in cost, I would say one of the biggest reasons why people have it is because they don't know they still have it. And
it's true.
How often do you look at your pay stub?
Oh, speaking of which, one more thing. Also be sure to check your beneficiary designations for your group life insurance. Unfortunately, about half the people in the country go through divorce. Well, they've done all these things, but they forgot to change their beneficiary designations. And if that's the case, the money may not be going to where you had hoped it to go. So check these things out. These, once again, check with a qualified federal retirement expert who can guide you and maximize savings as well as income in retirement.
And even if we can't help them with their retirement planning, it doesn't mean that we can't get them a retirement analysis report to help illustrate what retirement will look like for them. They may not have additional assets for planning and so forth, but not everyone's in that position. Most have saved well for retirement, and those types of people we can help with their options in retirement.
Thank you very much for letting us offer our information to you and our services that might help you make wiser decisions in retirement. Thank you.